Maya Johnson sat in her small apartment looking at her laptop screen. She was 28 years old, smart, and had worked very hard to get her marketing degree. Today was a big day. She had a job interview at Westfield Marketing, one of the biggest companies in the city. "You can do this," she told herself as she checked her resume one more time. Maya had grown up in a small town where not many people went to college. Her parents had worked extra jobs to help her study. She wanted to make them proud. Maya put on her best black suit and looked in the mirror. Her dark hair was neatly tied back, and her eyes showed both hope and worry. The big city was not easy for someone like her. In 3 months of job hunting, she had faced many closed doors. At 9:30 a.m., Maya walked into the tall glass building of Westfield Marketing. The lobby was huge with marble floors and modern art on the walls. People in expensive clothes walked quickly, talking on phones or typing on tablets. "I'm here for a 10 a.m. interview," Maya told the receptionist. The woman barely looked up. "Take a seat. Someone will come for you." Maya waited for 45 minutes. She watched as other people came in for interviews and were taken upstairs right away. Finally, a young man approached her. "Johnson, follow me," he said without introducing himself. They went up to the 30th floor. The elevator was silent and awkward. Maya tried to stay calm, remembering all her achievements and skills. The interview room had 5 people sitting at a long table. The man in the middle was Robert Wilson, the department manager. He had gray hair and cold eyes. He didn't stand up when Maya entered. "So, you're from, where was it again?" Wilson asked, not looking at her resume. "Greenville, sir. I graduated top of my class at State University with a marketing degree and—" Yes, Wilson cut her off. "Small-town education. Interesting. Do you have any real experience with major clients?" Maya explained her internship work with local businesses and a small marketing firm. While she talked, 2 of the interviewers checked their phones. Another whispered to his colleague, "Your resume says you developed a social media campaign that increased client engagement by 75%, said Wilson. "That's hard to believe from someone with your background." Maya felt her heart sink but kept her voice steady. "I have the metrics and case study in my portfolio, sir," the client was very pleased with. "Let me see that," said a woman at the end of the table. She took Maya's portfolio and flipped through it quickly. "These ideas are actually quite good. Who helped you with these?" "I developed them myself, ma'am," Maya answered. Wilson laughed a little. "Well, creativity is one thing, but Westfield needs people who understand how the real business world works. This isn't a small-town coffee shop we're marketing." For the next 20 minutes, they asked Maya basic questions that had nothing to do with her skills. When she tried to talk about her ideas for digital marketing, Wilson checked his watch. "Well, Ms. Johnson, we'll be in touch if we think you might fit somewhere in our organization. Perhaps in an entry-level position. Do you have any questions?" Maya wanted to ask many things, but she just said, "When might I hear back about the position?" "We'll call if we're interested," Wilson said, already standing up. "Thank you for coming in." As Maya left the building, she felt tears forming in her eyes. But instead of sadness, she felt something stronger growing inside her. Determination. "This isn't over," she whispered to herself. Not by a long shot. The bus ride home from Westfield Marketing felt longer than usual. Maya stared out the window at the city lights, her interview folder tight in her hands. 3 weeks had passed since that terrible interview, and she had heard nothing from them, not even a rejection email. "This city eats dreams for breakfast," said an old woman sitting next to Maya. She had kind eyes and was knitting something purple. Maya smiled politely. "It sure feels that way sometimes." "You look like someone who just got knocked down," the woman said. "But you don't look beaten." Maya thought about this. "I'm not beaten. Just regrouping." When Maya got home, she found another rejection email waiting in her inbox. This one was from Rivera Advertising, the 5th company to turn her down this month. She closed her laptop and laid down on her small bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "How did it go with that other company? The one you were waiting to hear from?" her mother asked. Maya didn't want to worry her parents. "Still waiting, Mom, but I have a good feeling." After the call, Maya opened her window and looked at the city. Thousands of lights from office buildings glowed in the dark. Somewhere out there was her place, her chance. She just needed to find it. The next morning, Maya went to her part-time job at a coffee shop. She served business people who barely looked at her while ordering expensive drinks. During her break, she scrolled through job listings on her phone. A customer had left a business magazine on one of the tables. Maya picked it up while cleaning, and a headline caught her eye. Johnson and Murray Consulting seeks fresh talent. It was a small consulting firm, but they had a good reputation. After her shift, Maya rushed home to update her resume. This time, she decided to try something different. Instead of just listing her experience, she included a one-page marketing proposal specifically for Johnson and Murray's newest client. "What do I have to lose?" she said to herself as she sent the application. 2 days later, Maya got a call. "Ms. Johnson, this is Patricia Murray. I'd like to discuss your application and that interesting proposal you sent us." The interview at Johnson and Murray was completely different from Westfield. Patricia Murray, a sharp woman in her 50s, asked Maya real questions about marketing strategies and listened to her answers. "Your idea for the Greenlight project is exactly what we've been looking for," Patricia said. "Where did you learn to analyze market gaps like that?" "When you grow up with less, you notice what's missing," Maya explained. "I applied that same thinking to marketing." Patricia nodded slowly. "We can't match what the big firms pay, but we can offer you something they can't." "What's that?" Maya asked. "A chance to prove yourself, real work with real clients. No coffee runs or copy machine duties." Maya felt her heart race. "That's exactly what I want." "There's one more thing," Patricia added. "We just signed a contract with Central Media Group. They own several smaller companies, including Westfield Marketing." Maya tried to keep her face neutral. "I actually interviewed there recently." Patricia smiled. "Did you? How interesting." She offered her hand to Maya. "Welcome to Johnson and Murray, Ms. Johnson. We start work on the Central Media account next week." As Maya left the building with a job contract in her bag, she looked up at the sky. Dark clouds were moving away, and sunlight was breaking through. "Not beaten," she whispered to herself. "Not even close." That night, Maya called her parents with the good news. Her mother cried happy tears, and her father told her how proud he was. After the call, Maya opened her notebook and began planning. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time since coming to the city, she felt ready. 3 months passed quickly at Johnson and Murray. Maya's desk was covered with sticky notes, coffee cups, and marketing plans. She had worked on 5 different projects, and each one had been successful. Clients asked for her by name now. Patricia Murray stopped by Maya's desk one Friday afternoon. "Got a minute?" Maya nodded and followed Patricia to her office. The walls were covered with awards and photos of Patricia with important business people. "The Central Media Group project is bigger than we expected," Patricia said, sitting down. "They want a complete marketing overhaul for all their companies, including Westfield." Maya's heart jumped at the name. "That's a huge project." "Too huge for us alone," Patricia agreed. "They want us to work directly with their team. I need someone to lead our side." She looked straight at Maya. "I'm thinking it should be you." Maya blinked in surprise. "Me? But I've only been here 3 months." "And in those 3 months, you've shown more talent than people who've been here for years," Patricia said. "You understand what Central Media needs." Maya thought about Westfield and Robert Wilson. Would she have to work with him? The idea made her stomach tight. "There's a meeting next Wednesday with Central Media's executive team," Patricia continued. "They want to see our initial ideas. I'd like you to present them." That weekend, Maya barely left her apartment. She researched every company under Central Media Group, especially Westfield. She created detailed plans, charts, and presentations. When Monday came, she showed everything to Patricia. "This is excellent work," Patricia said, looking through Maya's presentation. "But you seem worried. What's on your mind?" Maya hesitated. "I should tell you something about Westfield. I had a bad interview experience with them before joining here." Patricia nodded slowly. "I suspected something like that. Was it Robert Wilson?" "Yes," Maya admitted. "He and his team. They didn't take me seriously." Patricia laughed. "Wilson has that effect on many people, but don't worry about him. Central Media has been unhappy with Westfield's performance. That's why they need our help. She put her hand on Maya's shoulder. Just be your brilliant self, the rest will fall into place. Wednesday arrived too quickly. Maya wore her best suit, a new navy blue one she had bought with her first paycheck. Patricia drove them to Central Media's headquarters in her silver Mercedes. Ready to shine? Patricia asked as they walked into the building. Maya took a deep breath. Ready. The meeting room was large with glass walls and a view of the city. 10 people sat around a long table. Maya recognized Robert Wilson immediately. He was talking loudly to the man next to him. He didn't notice Maya at first. A tall woman at the head of the table stood up. Welcome, Patricia. Is this the marketing genius you've been telling me about? Yes, this is Maya Johnson, Patricia said proudly. She's developed our comprehensive strategy for the project. Robert Wilson finally looked up. His face froze when he saw Maya. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The tall woman smiled. I'm Elizabeth Chen, CEO of Central Media Group. We're excited to hear your ideas, Ms. Johnson. Maya set up her presentation as Wilson whispered to his colleagues. She could feel his eyes on her, probably remembering how he had dismissed her months ago. When Maya began speaking, her voice was clear and confident. She explained her marketing strategy, pointing out problems and solutions for each company. When she got to Westfield, she looked directly at Wilson. Westfield has strong potential, but is losing market share due to outdated approaches, she said calmly. Our research shows they need a complete digital transformation. By the end of her presentation, Elizabeth Chen was nodding with approval. Even some of Wilson's team looked impressed. Wilson himself sat stiffly in his chair, his face unreadable. That was exactly what we needed to hear, Elizabeth said. Ms. Johnson, I think you're exactly who we need for this project. As the meeting ended, Maya caught Wilson staring at her with a mixture of surprise and something else, respect, perhaps, or fear. She smiled politely at him as she packed up her materials. The path forward was clear now, and Maya Johnson was just getting started. The meeting with Central Media Group changed everything. Maya's presentation had impressed not just Elizabeth Chen, but the entire board. Over the next week, Maya's phone didn't stop ringing with calls from Patricia and the Central Media team. They want you to lead the entire project, Patricia told Maya during lunch at a small restaurant near their office. Not just our part of it, but to coordinate everything. Maya nearly choked on her sandwich. The whole project? That's usually for someone with years of experience. Patricia smiled. Elizabeth Chen specifically asked for you. She said she hasn't seen such clear vision in years. She leaned forward. This is your chance, Maya. Take it. Later that day, Maya received an email from Elizabeth Chen herself, asking her to come to Central Media headquarters the next morning. The email ended with, "We have an interesting proposition for you." Maya barely slept that night. She tried on 5 different outfits before choosing a simple black dress with a red blazer. Professional but confident. The Central Media building seemed even bigger than before. A security guard escorted Maya to the top floor, the executive level. Elizabeth Chen's office had glass walls and a view of the entire city. Maya, thank you for coming, Elizabeth said, standing to greet her. Please sit down. Maya noticed they were alone. No Robert Wilson, no other executives. Your work has impressed everyone here, Elizabeth began. The way you analyzed each company's weaknesses and strengths was remarkable. Thank you, Maya said. I'm excited about the project. Elizabeth nodded. About that, we want to offer you something different. She slid a folder across the desk. We want you to join Central Media Group directly as our new Director of Strategic Marketing. Maya stared at the folder, stunned. I don't understand. It's simple. We need someone with fresh ideas and courage to implement them. You've demonstrated both. Elizabeth opened the folder to reveal an employment contract. The salary number made Maya's eyes widen. This is very generous, Maya managed to say. It comes with significant responsibility, Elizabeth explained. You would oversee marketing for all our subsidiaries, including Westfield. Maya's mind raced. What about Johnson and Murray? What about Patricia? We've already discussed this with Patricia. She's sad to lose you but proud. She said you were destined for bigger things. Elizabeth smiled. She'll continue working with us as a consultant. Maya looked at the contract again. What about the current marketing directors at each company? They would report to you, Elizabeth said simply, including Robert Wilson at Westfield. The room seemed to spin around Maya. Robert Wilson, the man who had dismissed her so completely, would be working under her. I can see you're thinking about Westfield, Elizabeth said. Patricia mentioned you had interviewed there before. Maya nodded slowly. It wasn't a positive experience. I'm aware of Wilson's traditional views, Elizabeth said carefully. That's partly why we need someone like you. Some of our companies are stuck in old ways of thinking. They need fresh perspective. Maya took a deep breath. May I think about this overnight? Of course, though I should mention the board is meeting tomorrow afternoon to finalize several positions. Having your answer before then would be ideal. That evening, Maya walked around her neighborhood for hours, thinking. She called her parents for advice. This is what you worked for, honey, her mother said. Don't let past hurt stop you from going forward. Her father agreed. You show them what you can do, Maya, all of them. The next morning, Maya arrived at Central Media wearing her red blazer again. Elizabeth Chen was waiting with the contract. I've made my decision, Maya said, sitting down. I'll accept the position, but I have 2 conditions. Elizabeth raised her eyebrows. Let's hear them. First, I want to build my own team, bringing in qualified people who might have been overlooked elsewhere. Elizabeth nodded. Reasonable. And the second? I want everyone to have a fair chance to prove themselves, Maya said firmly. Even those who might have underestimated me before. Elizabeth Chen smiled and offered her hand. Welcome to Central Media Group, Director Johnson. I think you're going to change things around here. As Maya signed the contract, she thought about the journey ahead. The path wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to walk it. Maya's first day as Director of Strategic Marketing at Central Media Group started early. She arrived at 7:30, 2 hours before most employees. The security guard seemed surprised to see her. Getting an early start, Director Johnson, he asked, handing her a new ID card with executive, printed in gold letters. Lots to learn, Maya replied with a smile. Elizabeth Chen had given Maya a large corner office on the 40th floor. It had 2 glass walls with views of the city and a desk big enough for 3 people. Maya felt almost lost in the space after her small cubicle at Johnson & Murray. On her desk was a folder marked Urgent. Inside were personnel files for all the marketing directors from each subsidiary company, including Robert Wilson's. Maya studied each file carefully, making notes about their strengths and weaknesses. At 9:15, her new assistant Sarah knocked on the open door. Your 9:30 meeting is confirmed, Sarah said. All subsidiary marketing directors will be present in conference room A. She hesitated. Mr. Wilson from Westfield called. He asked if he could meet with you privately before the main meeting. Maya wasn't surprised. Tell him I'm available at 9:20, for 10 minutes only. At exactly 9:20, Robert Wilson appeared at her door. He looked different from when Maya had first met him, less confident, more nervous. Ms. Johnson, he said, stepping into her office. Congratulations on your new position. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Please sit down. Maya gestured to the chair across from her desk. Wilson sat stiffly. I wanted to speak with you before the meeting to clear the air. I believe we may have gotten off on the wrong foot during your interview at Westfield. Maya looked at him calmly. You mean when you dismissed my ideas and suggested I wasn't qualified because of my background? Wilson's face turned slightly red. I may have been hasty in my assessment. Yes, you were, Maya said simply. She looked at her watch. Our meeting starts in 8 minutes, Mr. Wilson. Was there something specific you wanted to discuss? Wilson shifted uncomfortably. I want to assure you that I'm ready to work with you fully. Westfield has been part of my life for 20 years. Maya nodded. And during those 20 years, Westfield's market share has dropped 15%. Your digital presence is almost non-existent, and your newest campaign failed to reach anyone under 40. Those challenges can be explained. Wilson began. They can be fixed. Maya interrupted. That's what matters now. She stood up. Mr. Wilson, I don't care about our past interaction. I care about results. In the meeting, I'll outline my expectations for all directors. Meet those expectations, and we'll work well together. At 9:30 sharp, Maya entered conference room A. 8 marketing directors sat around the table, including Wilson. Some looked curious, others skeptical. Maya was the youngest person in the room, and the only woman. "Good morning," Maya began. "For those who don't know me, I'm Maya Johnson, your new director of strategic marketing." She passed out folders to everyone. "These contain my initial assessment of each of your departments and my expectations moving forward." A man from Blue Star Media raised his hand. "With all due respect, Ms. Johnson, some of us have been in this business since before you were born. What makes you qualified to assess our work?" Instead of answering directly, Maya opened her laptop and showed a presentation on the large screen. It displayed performance data for all the subsidiaries over the past 5 years. "These numbers make me qualified," she said calmly. "Every company under Central Media Group has lost market share, except for two." She pointed to the screen. "Only Greenpoint and Legacy Studios have grown, and they did it by implementing exactly the kind of strategies I'm proposing." The room fell silent. Maya continued her presentation, explaining her vision for each company. When she got to Westfield, she looked directly at Wilson. "Westfield has strong brand recognition but has failed to evolve. That changes now." By the end of the meeting, the energy in the room had shifted. Some directors were taking detailed notes, others were asking thoughtful questions. Wilson sat quietly, his expression unreadable. As everyone filed out, Elizabeth Chen stepped in. She had been watching from the back. "Impressive start," she said to Maya. "Some feathers got ruffled, but sometimes that's necessary." Maya nodded. "Change isn't always comfortable, but it's often necessary." As she walked back to her office, Maya knew this was just the beginning. The real work and the real challenges were still ahead. 3 weeks into her new position, Maya faced her biggest challenge yet. Today was the day she would visit Westfield Marketing in person, Robert Wilson's territory. Her driver pulled up to the Westfield building, a gray structure that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1990s. Maya nodded and stepped out. The Westfield receptionist looked surprised to see her. "Director Johnson, we weren't expecting you until 10. "I like to arrive early," Maya replied with a smile. "Is Mr. Wilson in yet?" "No, he usually arrives around 9:30. "Perfect. Could you show me to the marketing department, please?" The receptionist led Maya through the building. Unlike Central Media's modern offices, Westfield felt stuck in time. Beige walls, old carpet, and cubicles everywhere. The marketing department was nearly empty at this hour, with just a few early workers typing at their computers. "Everyone, this is Director Johnson from Central Media Group," the receptionist announced. The employees looked up, surprised. A young woman with glasses stood quickly. "Director Johnson, I'm Amara Thomas, Junior Marketing Associate." "Nice to meet you, Amara," Maya said warmly. "Would you mind giving me a tour before everyone arrives?" As they walked around, Amara explained the department's structure. "There are 23 of us total. Mr. Wilson and 4 senior marketers have private offices. The rest of us work in these cubicles." Maya noticed the division immediately. "How long have you been here, Amara?" 3 years, Amara replied. "I came straight from college." "And still a junior associate after 3 years?" Maya asked. Amara looked down. "It's difficult to move up here." Maya nodded, understanding perfectly. "Show me the current campaigns you're working on." Amara brought Maya to a conference room where campaign boards were displayed. Most looked outdated and uninspired. "Did you contribute to any of these?" Maya asked. "I tried," Amara said hesitantly. "I submitted some ideas for the younger market, but Mr. Wilson said they were too risky." "May I see those ideas?" Amara seemed nervous but went to her desk and brought back a folder. Inside were brilliant campaign concepts that made Maya's eyes widen. "These are exactly what Westfield needs," Maya said. "Why were these rejected?" Before Amara could answer, voices came from the hallway. Robert Wilson had arrived with his senior team. "Director Johnson," Wilson said, looking flustered. "We didn't expect you so early." "I've been getting acquainted with your team," Maya replied. "Amara has been very helpful." Wilson glanced at Amara with a frown. She's just a junior associate. A junior associate with exceptional ideas, Maya countered, holding up Amara's folder. Ideas that could have helped Westfield's falling numbers. Wilson's face tightened. Perhaps we should speak in my office. Later, Maya said. First, I'd like a meeting with your entire team. Everyone, not just the senior staff. 30 minutes later, all 23 marketing employees sat in Westfield's largest conference room. Maya stood at the front, with Wilson sitting stiffly to one side. I've reviewed Westfield's performance over the past year, Maya began. The results are concerning. Your campaigns aren't reaching key demographics, and your digital presence is minimal. Some employees nodded in agreement while senior staff looked uncomfortable. Starting today, things will change, Maya continued. First, I'm implementing a new project structure. Ideas will be evaluated on merit, not on who proposes them. Maya walked to a whiteboard and drew a simple chart. Second, I'm reorganizing teams. Amara Thomas will lead the new digital innovation team. Amara's mouth fell open in shock. Wilson started to object but stopped when Maya looked at him. Third, every campaign must include strategies for reaching audiences under 30. That's where growth will come from. For the next hour, Maya outlined her vision for Westfield. As she spoke, she could see hope growing on many faces, especially among the younger staff. After the meeting, Wilson approached her. Director Johnson, these changes are very sudden. They're long overdue, Maya replied. Westfield has talent it hasn't been using. She glanced at Amara, who was excitedly discussing ideas with colleagues. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places. Wilson looked at his team, seeing them with new eyes. I suppose that's true. We have a meeting tomorrow at Central Media, Maya reminded him. Bring Amara and 2 other team members of your choice. It's time Westfield had more voices at the table. As Maya left the building that evening, she saw Amara working late with a new energy. Several other employees were gathered around her, contributing ideas. Change had begun at Westfield. It wouldn't be easy, but the path was clear now. Some walls had started to come down, and more would follow. 2 months flew by like a blur. Maya's changes at Westfield had started to show real results. Their new youth-focused campaign had gained attention across social media, and client calls had increased by 30%. Today was an important milestone, a quarterly review meeting with Elizabeth Chen and the Central Media Board. Maya arrived at the office early to prepare. She was reviewing her presentation when her phone buzzed with a message from Amara. Emergency at Westfield. Need to talk ASAP. Maya frowned and called her immediately. Amara? What's happening? The digital campaign data is wrong, Amara said, sounding stressed. Robert just showed me the report he's bringing to the meeting. The numbers don't match what we've been tracking. Maya felt her stomach tighten. How wrong are they? They show only a 12% increase instead of 30. It makes your changes look barely effective. I'll be right there, Maya said, grabbing her bag. She arrived at Westfield 20 minutes later to find Amara waiting in the lobby. Robert's in his office with the senior team. Outside Wilson's office, Maya could hear raised voices. She knocked firmly and opened the door without waiting for an answer. Inside, Wilson and 3 senior marketers fell silent when they saw her. Director Johnson, Wilson said, looking uncomfortable. We weren't expecting you. Clearly, Maya replied calmly. I understand there's an issue with the quarterly report data. Wilson glanced at his team before answering. Just some last-minute adjustments to ensure accuracy. May I see these adjustments? Maya held out her hand. Reluctantly, Wilson handed her the report. Maya reviewed it carefully, her face showing no emotion even as she spotted the manipulated numbers. This doesn't reflect the actual performance data, she said finally. Why would you present incorrect information to the board? One of the senior marketers spoke up. The initial results seemed too good to be true. We thought a more conservative report would be safer. Maya looked directly at Wilson. Is that what you believe too? Wilson hesitated. Everyone in the room watched him, waiting for his answer. Finally, he sighed deeply. No, he admitted. The real numbers are exactly what Amara and her team reported. I was concerned the board would wonder why these changes didn't happen under my leadership earlier. The room fell silent. Maya set the report down on his desk. Robert, may I speak with you privately? The others quickly left the room. When they were alone, Maya sat down across from Wilson. I understand pride, she said quietly. I understand fear too, but I don't accept dishonesty. Wilson looked down at his hands. I've been at Westfield for 20 years. These changes, these new ideas, they make everything I've done seem outdated. Because many of your approaches are outdated, Maya said directly. That doesn't mean you are. Wilson looked up, surprised. You have experience in client relationships that are valuable, Maya continued. But you need to adapt. The question is, are you willing to learn and grow, or are you going to fight every change? Something shifted in Wilson's expression. For the first time, he was really seeing Maya as his director, not as the job applicant he had dismissed months ago. What happens now? He asked. Now we update this report with the accurate data, Maya said, and you present it to the board. Me? Wilson looked surprised. Yes, you'll explain our new strategy and give credit to Amara and her team. You'll show that you're leading this transition. Even though I tried to hide the results. That stays between us, Maya said. Everyone deserves a second chance to do the right thing. 2 hours later, in the central media boardroom, Maya watched as Robert Wilson presented the accurate data to Elizabeth Chen and the board. He spoke clearly about the new strategies and specifically praised Amara's digital innovation team. These results exceeded our expectations, Wilson concluded. Director Johnson's vision for Westfield is clearly working. Elizabeth Chen looked impressed. 30% growth in 2 months is remarkable. How did you achieve this? Wilson glanced at Maya before answering. By recognizing talent wherever it exists and being open to new approaches, something I should have done sooner. After the meeting, Elizabeth pulled Maya aside. Something's changed with Wilson. He seems different. Maya smiled. Sometimes people just need the right opportunity to show what they're capable of. As they walked out together, Wilson caught up with them. Director Johnson, do you have a minute? I'd like to discuss some new ideas for next quarter. Maya nodded. I'd like that. The walls were coming down, one by one. Change wasn't just happening in the campaigns and numbers, but in the people themselves. 1 year had passed since Maya Johnson first walked into Central Media Group as their new director of strategic marketing. Today, the company was hosting its annual leadership conference, and Maya was the keynote speaker. The grand ballroom was filled with over 200 employees from all subsidiary companies. Maya stood backstage, reviewing her notes one last time. So much had changed in a year. 5 minutes, Director Johnson, a staff member told her. Maya nodded and smoothed her red dress, the same color as the blazer she had worn on her first day. She looked out at the crowd and spotted familiar faces. Patricia Murray from Johnson & Murray, sitting proudly in the front row. Amara Thomas, now Westfield's digital marketing director, and Robert Wilson, who had become one of Maya's strongest supporters. Elizabeth Chen stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. 1 year ago, she joined Central Media Group and transformed our approach to marketing. Under her leadership, our market share has grown 22% across all subsidiaries. Please welcome Director Maya Johnson. The room filled with applause as Maya walked onto the stage. She waited for the clapping to stop before speaking. Thank you, Elizabeth. A year ago, I sat in a small apartment wondering if I would ever find my place in this industry. Maya smiled at the audience. Today, I want to talk about transformation, not just of companies, but of people. Maya clicked to her first slide showing growth charts for each subsidiary. Westfield's line showed the most dramatic improvement. These numbers tell a story, but not the most important one, Maya continued. The real story is about what happens when we recognize talent in unexpected places, when we listen to voices that have been silenced, when we give people the chance to prove themselves. From the second row, Robert Wilson nodded in agreement. Their professional relationship had evolved into a respectful partnership. He now led Westfield's client relations team, working closely with Amara's digital division, a perfect blend of experience and innovation. A year ago, Westfield marketing was struggling, Maya said. The screen showed before and after pictures of Westfield's office. The old beige walls and cubicles were gone, replaced by a modern, open workspace where teams collaborated freely. But the physical changes are just the beginning, Maya explained. The real transformation happened in our culture. We created pathways for advancement based on talent, not tenure. We embraced different perspectives. We learned to listen. As Maya spoke, she saw many heads nodding. Some of the same directors who had doubted her in that first meeting were now her strongest allies. None of this happened overnight, Maya continued. Change takes time, patience, and sometimes difficult conversations, but the results speak for themselves. The final slide showed Central Media Group's new marketing team, diverse in every way, with a mix of veteran experience and fresh talent. This is what success looks like, Maya said, gesturing to the screen. Not just in numbers, but in people working together, bringing their best ideas forward without fear of being dismissed. When Maya finished her speech, the audience gave her a standing ovation. Elizabeth Chen came back to the stage and presented Maya with an award for outstanding leadership. Maya Johnson has taught us all an important lesson, Elizabeth said to the crowd. Sometimes the person you underestimate today might be leading you tomorrow. After the ceremony, at the reception, Maya found herself standing with Robert Wilson and Amara Thomas. I have a confession to make, Wilson said, looking slightly embarrassed. I kept your resume from that first interview at Westfield. Sometimes I look at it to remind myself how wrong first impressions can be. Maya laughed. We've all come a long way since then. Thanks to you, Amara added. You gave us a chance when no one else would. No, Maya shook her head. You both did the work. I just opened the door. As the evening continued, Maya walked around the room, talking with employees from all levels of the company. The walls between departments, between old and young, between different backgrounds. Those walls had come down. Maya caught sight of her parents across the room. They had flown in specially for the event and were beaming with pride. She excused herself and walked over to them. Mom, Dad, she said, hugging them both. What do you think? Her father looked around the room, then back at his daughter. I think you found your place, Maya, and it's bigger than any of us imagined. Maya smiled. The journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. But now she walked the path with confidence, knowing that the obstacles behind her had only made her stronger for the road ahead.